Hello everyone and welcome to the new episode of the Darktable. In this episode we will continue our overview about dealing with colors, and for that I have prepared a few portraits this time. Those portraits can be downloaded from the Signature website, which offers a free raw files, and I will put the link into the description so that you can download those files and try to improve your own edits. So let's get started. In this particular photo, I like the fact that the photographer has well thought out how to put his subject in a good light. This beautiful woman stands out in terms of color and in terms of brightness from the background. And that's one nice example how important it is to made some thoughts when you're shooting, so that you don't need to lose so much time by repairing that bad condition later by editing, so you can concentrate just on improvements of the colors and contrasts and other things. So let's get started. As always, let's start with basic corrections. Lens correction, I think this needs also a denoising and a bit of exposure, and we can immediately go to the color Balance Rgb to increase a bit color intensity so that we can see how the colors look like. There, even better. Yeah, basic saturation, and as you can see, it's a quite nice improvement already. But what also we need to do is to separate that beautiful woman from the background even more by using color calibration and darken a bit the greens. Compensate that with the red channel. And also I will try to improve that even more by using color lookup table, darkening that green there, maybe also another shade of green. Let's try, I don't know, this one. See what happens. Oh no, that's too much. Let's go back. Something like that. So before and after. Yeah, let's look better. Now we have that distinction even better, even more. And I think what we also can do is use those patches to give that green tiny bit a bluish look. Okay, now we're finished here. And we can use now a bit local contrast. And I think we don't need too much exposure here. Let's go back there. And we need also a bit more chroma. So let's give it that. Now, we have improved those distinction, but we have too much texture in the greens. So let's remove the texture by using contrast equalizer, excuse me, only on the greens. So let's mask them first. Let's see how it looks like. Maybe it's okay. It's enough. And then go down there, but I will also use details threshold so that we don't have that flat look. Just a tiny bit. Okay, let's see before and after. It look much better. And let's see what should be the next step. Now I would like to add a little bit of the soft contrast with low pass module. So let's do that first. So we are desaturating that photo, maybe adding bit radius and multiply mode. Let's see how far we should go. Maybe not too much. Okay, something like that. And we also can improve the colors a bit more with the next instance of the color balance module. Just a bit more, give it a bit more that warmer look. So let's go to the 4 ways tab, maybe use midtones and also highlights. Let's see, for the warm, for the midtones and highlights, and maybe just a bit blue on the shadows, something like that. Let's see how to improve the masking now. And we can also add a bit more contrast in overall picture. Maybe a bit of power so that we don't have too dark. And as you can see now, we have a nice distinction between her hair and the background. And maybe as last step, I will diffuse a bit that look so that we have don't have that too much details around, just a bit soften. You can do that with soften module also. I will use diffuse and sharpen module, the new module, and I will do that real quick, maybe 2 iterations and quite high radius, something like that, and maybe regulate that with opacity slider. So we need just a tiny bit, we don't need too much. So that we have the soften just a bit that photo. And now we can add just a bit of exposure there. Now, I think that looks quite nice now. We don't need to do anything else. So let's see before and after. I don't know, maybe go to this exposure here or denoising. Okay, then, oh, excuse me. Take the snapshot, go to the last step, and look at that. This was quite easy because we have that nice photo, which is well thought by shooting. Okay, let's see the next one. This photograph here of that nice little girl reminds me quite a lot of the photographs of Steve McCurry. That is one documentary photographer who is well known by his Afghan girl. And I will try to bring a little bit of the atmosphere of those photos here. So let's get started. As always, some corrections first. Lens correction. Do we need... yeah, we need a bit of denoising. And I will try to crop it a bit. So let's see, freehand, go a bit down so that we concentrate only on our girl. Maybe something like that. And let's see what will be the next step. Let's do some white balancing first with color calibration. Let's see what we get. Oh no, it's too greenish, so let's choose that t-shirt from our little child. It looks a bit better. And we can add a bit exposure, maybe. Don't know, not too much, maybe a bit less, and go to color balance and do our work there first, so that we can see the... It already looks quite nice. We don't need to do much, but it's too saturated. I will go back there and also add a bit of local contrast. Let's see. And maybe just a tiny bit of red in the shadows, and maybe orangey there. Go to masks and see what the masks are talking. Okay, but it's too saturated, so let's go back with our saturation. Maybe even more. And we have here some issues with blacks, so we can also use global offset to correct that. And maybe as last step, it looks nice now. As last step, we will add some vignetting there. So we choose our little girl and maybe a bit feathering and darken the rest. Oh, I need to toggle that. So, okay, more there, and we're done. It looks quite nice. We don't need to do any other adjustments because we have that nice orangey look or brownish look, which is quite typical for Nikon vivid option. And I don't know, let's see before and after. Go to the crop there, take a snapshot, go to the last step, and as you can see, it looks quite interesting. Okay, let's try another one. For this one, we need to do first some corrections so that we can analyze it a bit. So let's do that first, the lens correction, maybe the noising and exposure. And let's see what can be done with this one. This one is particularly interesting because we have that reduction of the colors only on few areas, those stripes on the plane and those colors of the head of the or woman aviator. And those colors are also complementary. So if we can unify that complementary colors even more, or that distinction between those two complementary colors, maybe we can get some interesting effect there here. So I think it could be interesting to try that typical teal and orange look, which is overused, but I think in this case could be quite interesting. So let's get started. Let's darken a little bit the sky with tone equalizer first, so that we can have that brightness corrected, and maybe add even more exposure so that we can better see our colors. And now we can use color balance first to add that color so that we can recognize that distinction a bit better. That's normal procedure. And now we will use color calibration module, new instance, and play a little bit with the channel mixer here. So we will remove that red and maybe a tiny bit of green, or and add bit red with red, input red on the red channel, maybe something like that. Tiny bit, remove tiny bit red from the blue channel and add it back here. I don't know, let's play also with the greens. I don't know, not too much, add some reds there, something like that, I don't know. Maybe even more. Okay, I think we're good here. Now it's oversaturated, so let's remove saturation and color balance module. Maybe add a little bit of local contrast also. Let's see. and maybe I'll also global offset. So it looks quite interesting now, but it's too bluish. So what I also can do to add a bit red in the shadows, something like that, and maybe orange in midtones, just a tiny bit. So let's see how it looks with masking, and now remove that color intensity even more so that we don't have that saturated look, and it looks quite nice color wise. The last step what I would like to do is to enhance a little bit the brightness on the face of the woman. Maybe just use another exposure module and mask that reds in the face. Let's see. Oh, that doesn't look good. And it's better. So feathering radius and maybe a bit of mask contrast, and also we reduce that to the face with our drone mask and add a bit exposure there, just a tiny bit. I think we can also go even further with our desaturation or removing chroma. I don't know, mid-tones a bit. Yeah, that looks great. I'm thinking maybe also go to the power, add even more contrast there. Yeah, that looks cool. So we have that reduced practically those colors only to 2 colors. Let's see how it looks like with our microscope. When we go to exposure, for example, before we had done that, you see that the distribution is quite different. And now I'll go back. We have compressed those colors only for 2 sides. We have that orangey and bluish, and it looks quite nice in this case. So let's see before and after. Let's go, I don't know, exposure, take a snapshot, and to the last step, and that's cool. As I said, this particular look is really overused, but I think in this case works quite well. Okay, next one. As for the last photos, let's make some corrections first here to be able to judge what needs to be done. So let's go with lens correction, denoise, and also color calibration. And now we can see how it looks. And let's analyze it a little bit. When I look at this photo, both the subject and the colors are reminding me on the paintings from the period of so-called Belle Epoque in Europe. That is the time between the end of the 19th century to the start of the First World War. And I cannot name any particular artist, but I have that feel when I see those pastel colors. And I must say, the photographer had done a quite great job to combine that colors together. We have here that purple skirt of the woman, which is quite nice combination with that flowers of the grass, and as contrast we have that pastel green and bit bluish sky. So we will have that in mind when we try to improve this photo. So let's get started. Okay, let's first improve the brightness of our photo, so we can use exposure to bring that brightness up. Maybe not too much, and I will use Filmic to compress the dynamic range a little bit so that we have that highlights back, maybe something like that. Add some contrast, and as you can notice, we have here some issue. I think, yeah, that photo is overexposed here, so we need also to correct that with highlighter construction module. So let's see if we can improve that. We can save some clouds there. Yeah, it works good. And now I will try to darken a little bit that sky there. I will use tone equalizer for that. Quick mask, a quick adjust of the mask, and go down so that we can see maybe just a bit more, something like that. And now we have a nice starting point for for further adjustments. And now we will go to the color balance RGB module and play with color intensity a bit there. So let's see what we can get there. So a bit saturation and also the contrast, maybe also a bit highlight gain and power function, so they have even more contrast. Now I will add local contrast also and protect shadows there. And maybe we can go now to the color calibration module and play a little bit with the color, with the channel mixer here, just tiny bit. We don't need to do too much. I would like to bring that, to give those clouds just a tiny bit of blue, and go back with red, not too much. We need to be careful here because we don't need too much of that effect. Something like that, I think it's enough. Yeah, just to have that better distinction between those two colors. And now I think I can go back to the exposure module, bring the exposure a little bit down, because maybe something like that, because I would like to enhance the exposure in this area with the head and the head. So we will use now next instance of exposure module with drone mask only on this area, something like that, nothing special. Maybe feathering radius and add exposure there so that we can clearly see her face. There we go, a bit further. Well, let's see before and after. Yeah, it looks much better. And in the next step, I would like to darken a little bit the skirt of our woman. So we will use also one exposure model for that. This time maybe only parametric mask. Let's see. What do we get there? Yeah, it's almost nice. I think we need a bit more of the red there. On the other side also, I think. Let's see. I think it will be enough, but we need to protect the rest. So we will use also combination with drone mask here. Something like that. Okay, and bring back that exposure down. Okay, it looks much better now, and let's see what should we do next. And now that we have more room on our dynamic range, we will use another tone equalizer instance and add some contrast here, just a soft contrast. Let's adjust our mask here and play a little bit with points here, just a bit, not too much. Something like that. And I think we can darken the sky a little bit, so let's use another instance of color calibration so that we can darken a little bit of blue channel, just a tiny bit, and compensate that with adding a brightness on the red channel, maybe something like that. Now I will add one vignette only on our woman here. So let's use a next instance of exposure module with Joan mask just over our woman. Nothing fancy. Maybe just adjust the Joan mask a little bit. The feathering radius, and go back with, oh, we need to toggle that, of course. Oh, that's too much. Not too much, just a tiny bit. I think something like that should be enough. Yeah. And I would like to give that photo now just a bit of soften look. As you can use, of course, soften module, but I will use diffuse and sharpen, and I will put it above color balance module here, so that we have that, maybe mask radius and something like that. Nothing special, just a little bit edge sensitivity, and of course a bit of opacity. I want just to remove that contrast just a little bit from the blacks, from the shadows. That's the purpose. Nothing special. Yeah, something like that. That's enough. And maybe, let's see, maybe we can improve even a bit colors with another instance of color balance RGB module. I will just enhance that blue and orange by using a bit blue in the shadows, something like that, and just a tiny bit of orange in power function and midtones, something like that. Maybe even more chroma on the blue side. Let's see before and after. Yeah, just a tiny bit, nothing special. Now, I think about, I would like to also give some blue on the greens, but this time I think it will be enough to use color lookup table for that. So let's choose our greens here and just give it a tiny bit of blue here, so that we have that pastel color. Oh, that's too much now. Let's go back. Okay, maybe that's enough. Add some saturation. Not too much. And go back. I think now it looks great. Let's see before and after. Yeah, it's not so reddish. So we have enhanced those contrasts between that purple or pink and green. And I think we're done now. Maybe, I'm not sure. let's try that. Where are we? Here. Let's add new instance of tone equalizer. I will just darken just a little bit sky more the sky. Masking. Does it work? I don't think. Okay, that's enough. You can play all night long with this one. Okay, let's see before and after. I don't know where you go. Lens correction maybe, or color calibration maybe. Yeah. Okay, let's start there. Make a snapshot and go to the last instance that was called Tone Equalizer 1, and you can see before and after. It's quite nice. It reminds me of some postcards from this period of Belle Epoque. Okay. So we're finished for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time.